YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we'll be talking about hand traps. Now, since we don't have yet the ban list for the match duel, I think usually it comes out now. Maybe I'm just guessing around the first or second week of June, just after the OCG ban list, usually, because we have already the TCG ban list a while ago. So we're hoping we'll have OCG first, but match duel will always be like after the OCG ban list. Anywho, back to hand traps. So first and foremost, these hand traps are really significant at the moment, or still significant at the moment, and we'll be categorizing them whether they are S tier hand traps, A tier, just plainly playable hand traps, or just drop down copium. So right off the bat, we're gonna put Ash Blossom into S tier. Now, any card that stops your opponent from ever adding cards to their hand is a really good card to be on S tier. We'll talk about the other ones later on, but like I said, a very straightforward card like Ash Blossom needs to be on S tier, and even it stops Maxi from ever gain more card advantage. Then we have DD Crow. DD Crow is not typically an S tier card, but just an A tier. Now, there are some downsides for DD Crow, especially if you're going up against a non-tier elements deck, like for example Floowandereeze or Exo Sisters. But even so, DD Crow is still a really good card to actually target any cards in the graveyard of your opponent and just plainly banish them for that matter. Now, the next card will be similarly like DD Crow, but not entirely for its effects. But like I said, it is Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, and I'm going to put this one on playable. Now, why is that, and what is the difference between DD Crow and Ghost Bell? Now, Ghost Bell is a trigger effect if ever your opponent tries to remove cards out from the graveyard. DD Crow, in the other hand, is not a trigger effect. You can easily use it as a chain link, whether or not it is on the main phase whatsoever, or basically on another chain link higher. Now, the other downside for Ghost Bell is if you are going up against a non-tier elements deck, like for example, or any deck that doesn't rely mostly on the graveyard, like for example Goatee, Floowandereeze, Exo Sisters, then you'll basically have 2 or 3 bricks in your deck. But yeah, that is Ghost Bell. Next up, we'll have Drool and Lockbird. Now, I really have some doubts with Drool and Lock, although there are some cases where Drool and Lock will be useful in some time, but for me it's just basically copium. It is a good card though, but effects are typically like a double-edged blade. So next up we have Effect Veiler. I'm gonna put this Effect Veiler on A tier, although it has a similar effect of Imperm, but you can only use this card during your opponent's turn. So that's one downside there. Might as well just gonna get a copy of Imperm rather than Effect Veiler for that matter. But it's really up to the player whether or not they'll have Effect Veiler on their hand. There are some cases that it is plainly useful for them, but for me, I'm just gonna put this one on A tier. Next, we'll have Evenly Matched. At the current meta, Evenly Matched has been skyrocketing itself, basically just removing some necessary cards on your opponent's side of the field if ever they have a strong board. Whether or not it is tier elements, Black Wings, or even some other decks that relies mostly on spamming cards on the board. So you'll have Evenly Matched just to even out the field, or basically just level the field to your own. Next up, we'll have Gamma. At the moment, Gamma on 2 copies with another driver. Now, there are some 50-50 chances that people are actually using Gamma. It is not really a half bad card to actually add into the deck. It would be better though if ever this is 3 copies in Match Duel. This would really shine into S tier. But at the moment, I think I'm gonna place this one on A tier because drawing 1 of 2 copies in your deck, of course, especially if you have an additional like driver, of course, you'll have a Garnet for that matter if ever these cards doesn't really come out. Of course, you'll have to meet the criteria of no face-up cards on the field, or basically no monsters on the field for this Gamma to take effect. But even so, Gamma is still a really good hand trap that negates and just destroys once they take effect. Next up, we have Imperm. Now, Imperm, I'm going to put this on S tier. So Imperm has 2 effects. It has the same effect as Effect Veiler, but the difference with Imperm is whether or not it's your turn or your opponent, you can use this card as long as you don't control any card on the field. So that is a really good card to actually activate on. Of course, the additional card, which is the coup de grace for all imperm cards, which is the column that this card is activated on once it is set or after it is set. And then we'll have Artifact Lancia. So I'm gonna put Lancia on Copium. So two things I really don't like about Lancia, even way back. First of all, you can only activate this one during your opponent's turn. Second, there are some cases where you won't be going up against Flow Underrays or Exorcisters most of the time, especially with the current meta of Tier Elements or some other graveyard dependent decks. So typically, Lancia is not something that you'll actually use from time to time, and we're all off that phase for the Runics that keeps on banishing cards from your deck. So I'm gonna put this one on Copium. Although Naturia Runic is a thing though at the moment, but not many people are actually, or I haven't dealt any Naturia Runic players at the current rank that I am in. But even so, I'm gonna put this one on Copium. Then we have Maxi, the formidable Maxi. In a best of one format, Maxi thrives. So this is one thing that hasn't been changed since the birth of Master Duel. So it's either you spell summon a lot, going for your board, and letting your opponent draw into a ton of cards, or you stop and then you'll have like a mediocre board or basically no board at all. Then let your opponent go second and then just kill you off. Anyways, that is Maxi. Then we have Skullmeister. So Skullmeister at the moment, I'm gonna put this one in playable. So Skullmeister is like an imperm type of an effect, wherein it targets one card in the graveyard and just basically negates it. I think this is a trigger effect. I forgot about this, but I think this is a trigger effect. It doesn't really work like a DD Curl, wherein you can just start off your chain link effect in the graveyard. So I'm gonna put this one on playable. It will be good in some of the decks, especially for tier elements, but not quite gonna be better than most of the cards on the S tier. Then we have Nibiru the Primal Being. I would say at the moment it is on the side of A tier or playable. Oh, I forgot Kurikara here. So let's just gonna put this one Nibiru and Kurikara. I would place this one on playable. So Nibiru, I'm gonna put this one on playable at the moment because it is good in up against some other decks. Loander is not quite because they only have like 3 or 4 summons into their end pen and then they'll just end their turn. Branded, not quite. Not really a good card to go up against a branded deck. What else? Tier elements, maybe sometimes. It really depends on the player. But mostly on the 4th or 3rd turn, they actually, the 3rd summon, they actually have Rokelos on the field, which is very important for the deck to just negate the Nibiru's effect. I think basically that's it. Exorcisters is a really good deck to go up against Nibiru though, but what are the chances of that? Anyway, so that's gonna be Nibiru on the playable level. Then we have Shifter. So Shifter at the moment, depending on the deck you're playing, of course, you don't want to use this on some decks that rely mostly in the graveyard for you. But anyways, at the moment, I've seen some other players use this on Sprite decks, some Elfie decks, basically. But actually, it works well. I'm gonna put this one on, let's see, A tier. I'm gonna put this one on A tier. It's not a half bad of a hand trap. There are some cases wherein it meets the criteria of no cards in the graveyard first before you actually use this. Of course, if you're running 2 copies of Shifter, then there will be some cases wherein you'll have a ton of cards in your graveyard and then you'll just draw into another copy of Shifter. But anywho, that's one downside that is basically avoidable. Yeah, not all decks actually use Shifter, so I'm gonna put this on A tier. But it is closely to S tier at the moment, up against the current meta. And then lastly, we have Snow Rabbit. So, Snow Rabbit at the moment, I'm gonna put this on A tier. It was very good before during the Mathmech era, just to remove a copy of Alambertian, or during the time of Sprites, destroy a copy of Gigantic Sprite. I'm still gonna put this on A tier. It has its significant effects. Of course, destroying cards face up on the field. Field spell for the tier elements, really significant enough to destroy with the help of Snow Rabbit. You have Scream, you can destroy this card. You have Magnificent Map, of course. You have what you call that? The other continuous spell for the Flow Underrays. You can use that as well. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna put this one on the A tier because it has its usefulness in most of the decks. So that is basically our hand trap criteria for today, guys. That's it for today. Keep safe, good luck, I'll see you on the next video. Like and subscribe for more contents like this, and goodbye.